I am Daniel Perret, professor at the École d'Extrême-Orient in Paris. And my presentation is entitled North Sumatra as a melting pot of cultural diversity, mid-9th, 14th century CA. This presentation aims to shed light on a period in the history of North Sumatra which saw a great diversity of contacts and people originating from various regions who lived there at the time. This period covers from mid-9th to the 14th century CA and concerns the west and east coast as well as the interior of the region. This observation is one of the results of the archaeological excavations carried out between 1995 and 2016 on 4 settlement sites by the National Center for Archaeological Research of Indonesia, Puslit Arkenas, and the École Française d'Extrême-Orient, EFEO, with the support of the Consultative Commission for Archaeological Research Abroad of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The 4 settlement sites which were intensively researched are 2 sites near Barus on the west coast, namely Lobutua, dated mid-9th, turn of the 12th century, and Bukitasang, dated 12th, early 16th century. Sipamutung in the Padang Lawas region, in the southern central part of North Sumatra, dated mid-9th, 13th century. Kotachina on the Strait of Malacca, dated late 11th, early 14th century. Barus is situated in a narrow coastal plain, which spreads between the Indian Ocean and the foothills of the Barisan Range, which summits above 2,000 meters above sea level. Inland, the Toba Lake is some 60 kilometers away. Lobutua and Bukitasang, the 2 main ancient settlement sites, are some 5 kilometers apart. From at least the middle of the first millennium of the Christian era, the northern part of Sumatra, and Barus in particular, has been renowned for its forest products, especially camphor and for gold. The reputation of Barus camphor is notably mentioned by Marco Polo at the end of the 13th century, who reported that the Fansuri camphor, which is the Barus camphor, was the best in the world, sold for its same weight in gold. This inscribed stone was found in Lobutua in 1873. It represents a very important find for the history of Barus and of Sumatra more generally, and even for the history of Southeast Asia. The inscription, dated to the end of the 11th century, indicates the presence of merchants representing a trade guild founded in South India, which was to play a very important role, not only in South India, Sri Lanka, but also in trade with Southeast Asia until the end of the 13th century. This Tamil inscription is not the only evidence of a South Asian presence in Barus at that time. Excavation in Lobutua have uncovered a large number of fragments coming from objects originating from South Asia. Most of these finds are earthenware shards. I would like to underline the idea that these objects were not part of the high seas trade, but probably brought by foreign communities for their own use. Here are examples of finds very probably produced in Bengal and Tamil Nadu. They include cooking pots, candies, plates, oil lamp, and a coin mold. The latter is an important find because it proves that Barus was issuing a currency before the 12th century. In fact, Barros remains the earliest known place in Sumatra to have issued a currency. The Lobutua excavation also yielded pottery, probably made in Sri Lanka, including cooking pots shown here. The excavation at Lobutua also uncovered a large number of fragments of objects made in the Middle East. These finds are not really surprising, given that Barros has been known to traders from the Middle East since at least the middle of the 9th century. In fact, the Lobutua archaeological collection remains the largest collection of glassware from the Middle East studied and published so far in Southeast Asia. Most of the Lobutua glassware was probably made in Persia. This blown glass is sometimes decorated using a wheel or in a mold. Finds from the Middle East also include earthenware from Persia. There are, for example, jars from the well-known port of Siraf in the Persian Gulf and glazed earthenware with sometimes a calligraphic or pseudo-calligraphic incised decoration. Research conducted in Lobutua yielded this inscribed glass seal, probably made in Persia and dated 10th, 11th century. Part of the glassware found in Lobutua comes from the Eastern Mediterranean region, including Egypt and Syria. There are, for example, jarlets, small bottles, and vials with a decoration of cream trail marvering. Several beads with the A pattern were also very probably produced in Egypt or Syria. The results of the excavation in Lobutua, combined with other sources, allow to draw up an image of a site with a very heterogeneous population, including Indians, people from Sri Lanka, Persians, Arabs, Javanese, and local people. Also, each foreign community brought with it a part of its culture, whether in the form of everyday object, language, or religion. The result of the excavation gives the impression of a mix based on the same concern, namely trade in a hostile natural environment. Lobutua was abruptly abandoned at the turn of the 12th century for a reason that remains obscure. We move now to Bukit Asang, the second important old settlement site in the Barros area. At Bukit Asang, earthenware, for which we suggest a production in South Asia, represents about 1/4 in quantity and 1/3 in weight of the total earthenware corpus. Compared to Lobutua, this share is significantly down, as it was about 2/3 by weight in Lobutua. But again, the excavations uncovered pottery from Bengal and Tamil Nadu, including plates, cooking pots, and shallow bowls. Pottery, probably made in Sri Lanka, is also present, as well as pottery from Kerala on the southwest coast of the Indian subcontinent. The region of Gujarat in northwest India also had relations with Barros. Interestingly, a type of cooking pot very close to a type found in Bukit Asang was still available on a market I visited in Gujarat in 2008. Moreover, glazed earthenware found in Bukit Asang was probably made in a workshop discovered some 15 years ago near the old city of Cambay. The excavation of Bukit Asang have also yielded earthenware whose origin we situate in the Indo-Persian world. That is the region between the Persian Gulf and the northwest of India. This marginal category in the Bukit Asang earthenware corpus as a whole consists mainly of unglazed pieces and shows a variety of fabrics and shapes. The upper part of a small terracotta female figurine was found in the Bukit Asang excavation. It probably reflects Hindu practices. An almost identical figurine, identified as Indian, was found on the site of Old Bahrain in the Islamic settlement dated 12th, 14th centuries. Other Indian artifacts were found in Old Bahrain, including cooking pots. This combination of religious artifacts and pottery led to believe that an Indian community settled in Bahrain during the 12th, 13th centuries. Therefore, Old Bahrain and Bukit Asang are contemporaneous settlements. I think that the discovery of these two figurines in overseas settlements is not due to chance, but that these objects were directly related with trading activities. I therefore suggest to interpret the Barrows figurine as an evidence of the presence of members of an Indian trade guild there in the 12th, 13th centuries. The relative stability of the Barrows population is reflected in the appearance of carved Muslim tombstone, at least since the mid-14th century. Here is an example of a very interesting epitaph in Arabic characters dated to the 1370 of the Christian era. It shows a mix of linguistic components and influences, especially from the Middle East. The deceased, a woman, could belong to the Muslim Chinese community settled in Bengal at the time. Another example of the Barrows cosmopolitism, a memorial to an important individual, probably born in the Middle East, bearing inscription in Arabic and Persian languages, dated 1425 or 26 of the Christian era. Glassware is also present in Bukit Asang, but not in the same proportion as in Lobutua. And glassware from the Middle East, and probably from other areas, seems to disappear in Barrows by the end of the 14th century. Contrary to Lobutua, which looks like a dynamic and independent trading place, out of reach to the powers controlling the Strait of Malacca, from the 12th century, Barrows appears as a weak polity, frequently compelled to adapt to the expansionist policies of kingdoms situated in the northern tip and on the west coast of Sumatra. Bukit Asang was also a cosmopolitan place, but people seem more settled compared to Lobutua. Bukit Asang was probably destroyed by Aceh in the 1530s. For historians of ancient times, the name of Padang Lawas, near the boundaries of the more southern provinces of Rio and West Sumatra, has been, for the last century and a half, associated with a number of Hindu-Buddhist remains. These isolated remains in the middle of the island are all the more remarkable because they form the largest Indianized archaeological complex known so far in the northern half of Sumatra. Near the confluence of the Barumun and the Batang Pane rivers, with 3 kilometers of earthworks, Sipamutung appears as the main ancient settlement site of the region. Also situated far inland, the Sipamutung excavation uncovered a variety of finds comparable to the variety observed in Barrows. Several indications lead to think that more than indicating commercial exchanges, they rather reflect a degree of cosmopolitanism. As regards earthenware, a technical group shows obvious affinities with containers found in large numbers in Barrows. for which a manufacturer in South Asia is considered. At Sipamutung, this category seems to belong mostly to the final phase of occupation. As a matter of fact, a Tamil inscription dating to the 13th century was found at Porlac Dolok, situated upstream on the Barumun River. As in Barus, Sipamutung also yielded iron nails, probably a South Asian technique at the time. Moreover, a Buddha image from South Asia and dated to the 10th century was found at Sipamutung. Also tenuous, these contemporaneous data are consistent with the presence of South Asian people at Sipamutung. I have also suggested that individuals from the Middle East resided at Sipamutung. This hypothesis is based on the recovery of various types of household objects from this region, including fragments of glassware, glazed and unglazed earthenware, as well as fragments belonging to containers of stone. It is this variety which, in my opinion, is the strongest argument supporting this idea. The most surprising find was probably a dirham from Bukhara, a city situated in present Uzbekistan, dated early 11th century. It is interesting to note that such finds are very rare away from Central Asia, but a small number of coins issued by this dynasty was recovered in the port of Siraf in the Persian Gulf, a port already mentioned in relation with Barus finds. Researchers conducted at Barus highlighted the great difficulty in understanding the place of the people of the archipelago from archaeological material alone. The same is true for Sipamutung. However, the concordance of a number of more or less tenuous indications leads me to suggest that a Javanese presence may have been quite significant, at least during the last phase of occupation. Firstly, the ground plan of Sipamutung main religious complex is similar to that of central Javanese temples. Secondly, a brick structure uncovered during our fieldworks suggests architectural affinities with contemporaneous structures found in East Java. Thirdly, there is a type of kendi found in several sectors on the site. It shows a hole underneath used to fill in water. This typically Javanese kendi is known in Java as kendi maling. The last settlement site introduced in this presentation is Kotachina. This major site was rediscovered in the 1970s. Surveys and limited excavation conducted at that time uncovered various kinds of remains. The importance of this site was confirmed during our excavation from 2011 until 2016. As we are preparing the publication of the results, I just would like to mention a few things regarding this site, which minimal surface area is estimated at some 25 hectares. As Lobutua, Bukitasang and Sipamutung, Kotachina shows connection with South Asia. The site has yielded stone images manufactured in South Asia, whether Brahmanical or Buddhist. Earthenware produced in South Asia or following South Asian style was found in large number in Kotachina. The site also yielded coins issued in Sri Lanka. This period of rich encounters between people from various origins in this part of Sumatra came to an end by the turn of the 14th century, except in Barus. Sipamutung and Kotachina were abandoned, and the region did not experience such a diversity until the late 19th century, with the development of large tobacco, EVA, and oil palm plantations on the East Coast. Thank you for your attention.